Hi, thank you for watching. My name is Glenn Morgan. This is We the Governed. I wanted to talk about the Republican caucuses and state convention in 2024 in Washington State today. And the reason why I'm doing this is a number of people have sent me questions or have had questions about how the caucuses work, how do we pick our presidential candidate in Washington State, all kinds of other questions that go along with just probably because it's a presidential year, and so people tend to be focused on party conventions and all that a little bit more every 4 years when the presidential race comes around. So here's how it works in Washington. And number one, the state convention in Washington State is not going to be where the Republican Party is picking who's going to be the presidential candidate for Washington State. That is actually done. We actually vote on it here. We have party. We vote for our presidential primary, and that vote's going to be in March. So by the time the April 19th to 20th state Republican convention out in Spokane happens, you're already going to know who the voters, at least the Republican voters in Washington State, actually supported. Now, so it's kind of funny. People will say, well, then why are we having a caucus? And a caucus is essentially, anybody that's been watching television, of course, you're seeing some different states have caucuses, states will have primaries. And what that essentially means, a caucus is essentially a party, so it's a partisan gathering of people. And you have different rules in different states. In our state, pretty much anybody can show up. You're supposed to be a Republican, but you can show up at the caucus. And a caucus meeting, most of them in Washington State, they had on January 13th. I live in Thurston County, so I'm going to be one of the counties that wasn't able to get their caucus organized because the Billmead venue got canceled due to snow, so it's going to be rescheduled coming up in early February. But essentially, that's where you're picking essentially your representatives from your various precincts in your county who are going to go represent that precinct at the county convention itself and the county caucus, I should say, itself. And each county, there's 39 counties in Washington State, each county will have their county caucus meeting where essentially they're also then picking the county delegates to the Republican state convention, which will be in Spokane, April 19th and 20th. Now, the primary for the presidential, or for who Washington State's going to pick for both the Democrats and the Republicans, those decisions are going to be made during the primary vote, which is actually going to be in March. So you'll have this presidential vote that comes up. And the political parties love primary votes in our state because in Washington State, nobody's registered technically as a Republican or a Democrat. So we have very low lack of clarity on our party affiliation here. And that's actually been true going back many, many years. It's been very common, and Washington State has never really wanted people to register by party, both Democrats and Republicans. And so you either join that party or get engaged in it, become a PCO, run for office, or clearly identify yourself as being associated with that party, or it's not clear that you're necessarily in one party camp or the other. And people in Washington State like to vote for Republicans and Democrats. Historically, that's been the way it has happened. And so it's very difficult if you're in that party and you're trying to fundraise. Mainly it's about fundraising. If you're trying to reach out to people and you want to know if they're Republican or Democrat, the only way you're really going to be sure if they're Republican or Democrat is if they participate in the presidential primary vote in Washington State, which this year will be coming up in March. And so when you get your ballot mailed to you, because Washington State's an all-mail-in ballot, this is where people get frustrated. They don't like marking that they're Republican or Democrat. But this is the only, you can't vote in both the Democrat primary and the Republican primary. You have to pick one every 4 years. And so when you pick that one, and you say, okay, that's the one I'm going to vote in, and you decide that you're going to participate in the presidential primary, that's how they at least get a sense, hey, you're probably a Republican because you vote in the Republican primary, or you're probably a Democrat because you vote in the Democrat primary. And so that's one of the ways that they're able to do just party identification. It really helps them for fundraising. And the people who are voting are interested in identifying which of their candidates they want to get to the general election. Now, Washington State tends not to be a battleground state so much. It's usually not the state that decides who's going to be the president or not, but it's early enough that it probably gets some attention depending on who gets chosen in both, again, the Democrat and the Republican Party primaries that'll be here in our state. Here's why the caucuses matter and what makes a little different right now for the Republican convention in Spokane in April. So again, April 19th and 20th. And they have some events out there a little bit earlier that you can go and attend. Just go to the Washington State Republican Party website if you want to get into the details. I'm not here to give all the details about it. I'm just here on an overview of trying to explain why it kind of matters this year. Whether you support Trump or some other Republican candidate, it doesn't really matter so much in the caucus process in getting to the Washington State Republican Party convention. They do pick the electors that go and are the final step in that process of voting for the president in what at the national convention later on. So from that standpoint, it would matter. But really, the big difference that's new this year for the Washington State Republican convention is that because Washington State's had this top two primary system now for a long time, number of years, top two jungle primary process, what that means is that only two people, regardless of party affiliation, come out of each primary. And it's been that way for a long time in Washington State. So I've done a video about it. I'll link to the video down below if you don't understand what the top two jungle primary process looks like or what it is. However, because of that, it's really weakened parties' ability to influence the outcome of elections and make sure that the people who win those elections are the most optimal person to represent that party. It's kind of hard for them to do that in top two jungle primary process. The other common thing that's happened then because of that for Republicans in particular, but it's happened to Democrats too, is that you can actually have one party or the other flood the zone with too many candidates who dice up their potential vote selection. And if the other party only has two really strong candidates, then the other party will have you'll have two Democrats or two Republicans on the state ballot or on the final general ballot, and the other party gets aced out of having any candidates in the final general ballot. So we saw this happen at a statewide level a few years ago with the state treasurer's race where there were two Republicans that made it through. There were three strong Democrat candidates who each got about the same percentage, and the two Republican candidates just came through. It's simple math, and same thing has happened, of course, to Republicans who are usually better at destroying themselves and immolating themselves in the primary. Because everybody gets a vision from God and has to decide to run all at the same time. And so the Republicans have done this to themselves when running for the Secretary of State, the Lieutenant Governor's office, the 10th Congressional District. They've done it in the 47th Legislative District. They've done it in a number of places around the state. And I think it was enough of a drama for the Republican Party where they decided, hey, listen, we at least want to get the party to have some endorsement process for at least these higher level sort of races. And so why this Republican convention at the state level will matter in April is that, and they haven't done this before, so this is the first time that they're going to try this. The respective candidates who are running for statewide office or for congressional seats, they're going to be needing to pitch themselves, if they're Republicans, to the state party. And the state party at the convention gets to decide, hey, this is our endorsed candidate. Now, doesn't mean if you don't get endorsed that you still can't run for office. I mean, filing week is the next month in May. You can still go ahead and run. But what it does mean is that if the Republican Party, the state party, if the PCOs or the representatives, the activists that are there, if they decide, okay, you're going to be our candidate that we endorse for this position, then that pretty much means that you're going to be the only person that the state Republican Party promotes, fundraises for, talks about, or does anything else. And so there's some advantage in getting that endorsement. It's just going to be another megaphone for you to get a lot more attention and distributing information about your campaign. They can endorse you. They can probably send out your mail. They can do all kinds of things that parties would do to support their campaigns. That had not been the case recently. And so this is going to be that test process to see how well it works. So you're going to have a number of different Republican candidates running for governor, lieutenant governor, AG, public lands commissioner, office of superintendent of public instruction, state auditor, state treasurer, positions like that. And they're going to be deciding which of the Republican candidates is the party going to endorse. And then you'll also have the same thing in the congressional races. We have 10 congressional seats, so you'll have multiple Republicans in most of these races, I would guess, that are going to be running in that congressional seat. And so at the state convention, you got to find out which of them get to be endorsed by the state Republican Party. So if you're involved and engaged in Republican Party politics, then that's the value, I think, that you get and the ability to have some influence. It's not the only thing you're going to be doing at the state convention. They usually talk about bylaws, Republicans are well known for fighting over bylaws and policies, so you'll get that opportunity there. You also get an opportunity to network with probably a lot of other like-minded people, and this is usually the time of year, every 4 years, where a lot of new people get involved in the political process. So if you want to learn more about this or understand a little bit more detail, because I'm kind of skipping over giving you some highlights on it, essentially that's what's going to happen this April. That's the value, I think, or at least a big impact you get out of going to the state convention. And if you want to be involved or engaged in that process, you can go to some of the websites that I'll have linked down below that'll give you some more information if you want to sign up for it. However, you probably need to go to your state. You need to have gone through the caucus, or if you're like I am in Thurston County where we got delayed, you have to go to the next caucus in Thurston County, which is going to be in February, and then those people will go to the county party caucus meetings and be selected to go to, or voted on or approved to go to the state convention. So it's an opportunity just to make an impact and be a little different in your little different engagement if you want to be involved from the party side of the process. That's how it works. If you want to learn more, have any other comments, please add those comments down below. I'm really curious to get your feedback on if you did go to the caucus, unless you're in Thurston County. Tell me how that went and what you think about just some of the issues leading up to the state convention. And anyway, interested in reading your comments, and I'll respond to as many of them as I can down below. Thanks so much for watching.